students who, and possibly clients if you're working with adults, who aren't going to be as independent as some folks. And if you've taken a look at the Minventory, the first version, when you come and you look at street crossings, for example, this is it. This is the entirety of the street crossing skills. Take that into contrast with the 150 odd skills that are that comprise a street crossing section, a domain of the standard inventory. And so these are a lot more supported. And a lot of these contain, physical or verbal prompts, or crossing without a prompt, crossing with a prompt. So these are much more supported. There are some students who are not going to be able to demonstrate everything on the inventory, and in order to not penalize those students, essentially, this is something that that can better reflect their abilities and what it is they are doing, and show their progress. The original inventory, there's the front page, and the front page on the new version of the Minventory, which is 2.0, look pretty much the same. The only real difference is way up here at the top where it says 2.0 instead of just Minventory. When you start looking at the columns, though, you start seeing the differences. Here again, on the standard inventory, if we go to that same street crossings domain, we can see there's 4 columns, and then there's another set of 4 columns, and a third set of 4 columns. Okay, on the new Minventory, we go to street crossings. Now you see there are 6 columns of data that can be entered, 6 different periods. So, I do things quarterly. You may do things by a semester, by 6 weeks if you're in Texas, by the school year. If you're a contractor working with somebody and you have 10 lessons, you might do parts of the Minventory and then updated each lesson. It's all up to you. It depends on what the user needs. So, for example, here in the street crossings, I'm just going to go ahead and punch in some numbers, and we will see a couple of different changes from the standard inventory. But the main piece is the information. The 61.25 kicks out to this very first column. And if we go back and we just copy and paste. So it's the same data all the way through in this little example. But now you can see here in the very first 6 columns, we have that information for street crossings, and it calculates down for the score and all that. Down here at the bottom, by the way, is something that is also new to the Minventory. You can put your goal. Say the kid's goal is 65% for those 4 quarters. And now you can see, okay, he's at 61.2%. His goal is 65%. He's 94.2% of the way to his goal. So it's handy as far as being able to update your IEPs and do present levels of educational performance and things of that nature. So it'll do those for you, which the first version of the Minventory did not have this. So updated it and made it look a lot more like the current version 4.0 of the inventory, which again is for kids who are going to be a little more independent. So one of the other big changes, let me come over here to indoor skills. Well, a couple things. First, some areas were consolidated. Stairs is now ascending and descending. On the older version of the Minventory, and also the older version of the inventory for that matter, you had ascending and descending as rated differently. Basically, the reason I just folded them together was I wasn't seeing any real divergence with kids being able to do ascending or descending differently. Same thing with escalators. Here in the movement, I wound up wiping out this area of self-propulsion. And the reason why is intentionally moving by scooching, by rolling, by scooting, by by the time you get to one of these kids, you may not see these sort of things demonstrated. And, to take a student who has multiple impairments, which could mean physical issues as well as possibly cognitive issues, and telling that student that, oh, well, they need to do some crawling and scooting, that's not going to go over very well. So just wipe that area out entirely on the movement domain of the Minventory 2.0. Coming back to the stairs, On the old inventory, pop back over here real quick. There we go. On the stairs, say you have a kid who's not a cane user. Well, we have a whole bunch of cane skills. So let's say that we have a student who consistently detects the presence of ascending stairs, but you score these as 0 because the kid's not a cane user and he doesn't need the cane skills for anchoring, bringing your toes up, all that kind of good stuff. So for the area, it shows up as a score of 0.833 out of a total of 5, which kicks down here. 0.833, and then it gives you a percentage of 1.6, well, basically 1.7 when you round it up. So not, it's not very impressive, particularly since it's just the one skill that you're rating. And if all you were rating was ascending stairs for this student, it would show up as a very low score. When you come out here to the front page, it would show up as 1.7 on the old inventory. On the new inventory, now, let's say that he's really good at detecting the presence of stairs, and he's not quite 100%, but he's more often than not, he's able to find the rail, and so you rate him as a 4. Now, even though we haven't rated these other skills, the cane skills, and we can zero them out or not, doesn't really matter, it's showing it as a 4.5 instead of that 0.83 or whatever it was on the other one. And then so when you come down to the bottom, you're seeing the 4.5 is carried down, and then it calculates out at 90%, and then you come to the front page, and there it calculates it at 90%. So the zeros are not counting at all. So before, if you rated anything in a skill, it counted against you, or I'm sorry, anything in an area, it counted against you, any skills that were zeros. Like we have here, just because we rated one thing. We didn't rate any of the rest, so they don't count against him. But as soon as we rated one skill in one area, the entire area had to be rated. Otherwise, it did count against him. That's no longer the case. And that's one of the big things with the inventory. You also see that the word wrap. Here, diagonal, if the cane's cross body, cane tip on the, and then I ran out of room, so I came to the next line. Second stair, elbow locked, and pressure exerted on the cane ascents. And what we have there then is essentially a little gray box because there's no score there. Now, it doesn't matter if you stick a number in here or not. It doesn't calculate in, but stylistically it wasn't really appealing. So now over here on the new inventory, that is no longer an issue because here's that same skill. And now it's just word wrapped, so it's one box. The box is a little longer, doesn't really matter though, but there's no more little gray areas in here. So you just rate as you go, and then everything just pops out on the front page. Those are the changes that I made to the inventory, which is the multiply impaired inventory. And other than that, the tool is largely familiar to anyone who has been using it. And if you have any questions about using the inventory versus the inventory, or just questions about the inventory generally, you can shoot me an email. You can come to the NMS BVI website, and then you go to resources, and coming down here to O&M inventory, and there we are right there. And we've got to get the inventory put back up here since I just redid it. But we have the inventory as the program. We also have videos on changes to the inventory, an introduction, a much longer introduction, goes on about an hour, for using the O&M inventory, which applies to the inventory as well, and then using the inventory to perform PLEPs and do all the nasty paperwork that we have to do in special education.